Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's installment of the Trenchless Technology webinar series. My name is Mike Kesdy. I'm the managing editor for Trenchless Technology and Trenchless Technology Canada magazines, and I'm pleased to moderate today's webcast, New Installation Projects from the Owner's Perspective. We're going to take a quick poll, so please submit your answer and then click the blue Return to Presentation button. At this time, I'd like to remind everyone that any views or opinions presented in this webcast are solely those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent those of Benjamin Media, Inc., the publisher of Trenchless Technology, nor does Benjamin Media, Inc. endorse any products or methods presented. The sponsor of today's webcast is the NASTT No-Dig Show. The 2023 No-Dig Show heads to Portland, Oregon, April 30th to May 4th, 2023. Municipalities, government agencies, and utility owners, are you aware that the NASTT No-Dig Show Municipal and Public Utility Scholarship was created just for you? The scholarship provides education and training for those who have limited or no travel funds due to restricted budgets. The scholarship includes a full conference registration, full access to exhibits and technical sessions, and overnight accommodations. The deadline to apply for the 2023 scholarships is November 1st, and more information is available at nast.org/no-dig-show/municipal-scholarships. On behalf of the entire team at Trenchless Technology, I'd like to thank everyone for taking part in today's webcast. As this is a live panel discussion, there are no slides for today's presentation. If you'd like to expand your view, click on the arrows in the lower right of the video box to enter full screen view. Today's discussion with system owners focuses on their use of new installation trenchless technology methods when installing underground infrastructure. You'll learn about trenchless methods being used, challenges the owners are facing when considering using trenchless, and more. Joining us today are Florence Heroux, Lead Senior Engineer, Engineering, Design, and Construction, Metro Vancouver in Vancouver, Canada; Omar Castellon, Assistant Director of Public Works Engineering for the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida; and Steve Heroux, Manager, Electric Distribution Underground at Dominion Energy. We have some questions prepared for the panel, but we want this to be an interactive discussion, so we encourage you to participate by typing your questions into the designated panel in the left-hand portion of the screen. So without further ado, I'd like to begin our discussion. I'll start with you, Omar. Briefly describe your system in Fort Lauderdale, its condition, anything that's unique about the system, and the way that it operates. And if you could also maybe introduce yourself and how long you've been in the industry.
Hi, my name is Omar Castellon, and I'm the Assistant Director for Public Works, City of Fort Lauderdale. I've been on this industry for probably about 31 years. I work in different, I used to do waste processing in the past, and as a part of waste processing, there is a wastewater treatment part of that. It's a big system that is part of waste treatment. Then I've been on the water industry, Heroux, desalination, was part of building about 14 plants in the Caribbean for desalination plants. I've been also involved with wastewater for cities and governments. And what's unique about Fort Lauderdale is a very congested metro area, and when you have pipe replacements, you have to be very you have to come up with new technologies to go through all under the buildings, under bridges, and create the least amount of disturbance to the residents. So we had two unique opportunities to do trenchless technologies on wastewater. So our force mains, they were aging, and we had events where we actually had some spills, and we had two projects that require immediate replacement. And one of the fastest ways to do it was using trenchless technologies. So the first system was about, I believe it was about 5 miles of 36-inch diameter pipes. And the last one that we just finished back in June of last year, it was about 54 to 48-inch pipe, and that was about 90%, 95% trenchless technologies, and that went through the whole heart of the city, about 7.5 miles. We did it from the first pump station that we had all the way to the plant. So that was a very unique project, and it was done in a record time, which was about 18 months. And we used 2 contractors to do it. So that was a big project, and we have won awards on that project, in the county and for the whole state. So.
Great, thanks. Florence, why don't we go to you now? Same question, just briefly introduce yourself and describe the system in Metro Vancouver and what makes it unique and any of the challenges that you're facing.
Yes, of course. Yes, first of all, hello all. My name is Florence Ho. I'm the lead senior engineer at Metro Vancouver. So I'm in the liquid waste department. So what Metro Vancouver is basically a regional government that oversees utility services for the City of Vancouver and all the municipalities that's in the surrounding area, including City of Burnaby, Richmond, and such. So we mainly deliver water and liquid waste or sewer, what you would call a wholesale service. So in terms of liquid waste, the municipalities would collect sewer from individual houses and businesses, and they would put their flow into our transmission pipe, as we will call it, our trunk mains, and we would operate those transmission pipe across the different regions and eventually into 5 different treatment plants that we also operate across the region, and we also run and operate them. So some of the fairly unique challenges that we see in our system is Vancouver is a fairly wet region, and a lot of these infrastructures were built back in the 60s and 70s, where sewage and storm was not separated. So during rain events, our sewer system tends to get inundated with a lot of infill and infiltration rainfall flows. So that makes our system demand fluctuates fairly dramatically. And in terms of working for upgrades, we have to put any pipe out of commissions. It really limits our construction window because we of course do not want to intentionally or unintentionally cause additional overflow into the environment or into people's properties. So we have to be really careful about bypass system. And also due to the fact that its legacy, the regional government was not established until maybe a bit while after the municipalities were established. So when we get our trunk sewer, a lot of the trunk sewer, even though they're supposed to be transmission mains, a lot of them, because they were what we call grandfathered, so the houses and business would have direct connections into our transmissions. So when we want to take sections of the lines out of commission for construction or for bypass or renewal, what should have been a very simple bypass exercise of going from maintenance hole number 1 to maintenance hole number 2, if you can isolate them and take it out of commission, we find that in between those 2 maintenance holes, there's actually a lot of direct connections from houses and businesses. And now we now have to deal with individually how do we maintain services to those customers while we do. Other challenges that we run into is permitting challenges. So if you are actually part of the city, you would have your own traffic department who runs the road, and it can be coordinated with to close roads and coordinate with, for example, if we go for parks, we coordinate with the parks department to go for park users. But because we are not technically a city, we are one level above, we're regional, we have to go back and ask the cities for permits. Can we please close your road so that we can upgrade these transmission mains, which also service yourself, but we understand it's not just your department. And sometimes there can be communication challenges because there's enough different departments in our own regional government already, and plus different municipalities have their own setups and departments that they run through. So that's one of the big challenges. So these challenges can partially be solved with Trenchless if we have to go through close less roads for new construction. And that would be very helpful. Another thing is other types of permits that we have to obtain recently have increased significantly in terms of permitting period, including environmental permits. We have to go for both provincial and federal governments if we have to work fairly close to streams and river, which we are quite abundant of in Vancouver. And as everyone know, we're in North America. We're going through a period where we're reconciliating our relationships with our First Nations and our Indigenous relations. So a lot of our construction is cognizant of the fact that we may find artifacts that are of archaeological values to the local Indigenous groups. So we have to work really closely with the different stakeholders in the region. And that has increased our schedules for the project quite a bit, but it's what we're learning to accommodate in our design and construction process.
Great, thanks. And finally, Steve, we'll go to you. I'm guessing you're going to have a little bit of a more unique take, being that you're in the energy sector, whereas Omar and Florence are in the municipal sector.
Yes, I will. I'm Steve Heroux, and I'm the manager of Dominion Energy's Strategic Underground Program in Norfolk, Virginia. I've been employed at Dominion Energy or predecessor companies for 40 years. Dominion Energy is an investor-owned utility. We have nearly 7 million electric and gas customers and spread across 16 states. Right now, my area of expertise is electric distribution, so I'm going to focus my comments on electric distribution work that's performed in Virginia and North Carolina, specifically our strategic undergrounding program and a few references to new customer connect work. We have around 40,000 miles of overhead primary lines in our Virginia and North Carolina territory, and about 20,000 miles of underground primary. Our system is fairly modern, and we're consistently updating it with reliability-based improvements. One thing to know is the expected lifespan of typical underground cable is 30 to 40 years. There are a few things you can do to extend it, but there's not a heck of a lot out there that can be done to extend it. So in addition to our strategic undergrounding, cable replacement is also a large part of our activities. The work we do in our daily operations are overseen by the Virginia State Corporation Commission and the North Carolina Utilities Commission. And moving on to talk about some of the challenges we face, it begins on our overhead system and its vegetation growth, various types of weather events, snow, ice, and tropical systems. Because we're right in the middle of the mid-Atlantic, we get it all. Even though our system is very well maintained and we build it to the highest wind and ice standards, when it's subject to damage from trees, wind, and that ice, it takes a while to get the lights back on. And customers can be subjected to a long duration outage. And one of the things we did in an effort to reduce those impacts, we created a strategic underground program. And the program is the first large scale undergrounding utility program in the United States. So we target underperforming tap lines, and we work with our customers to bury them through our properties. We convert about 300 miles of overhead tap lines annually and the associated service conductors with it. So we underground everything from the roadway all the way into the house. And that typically turns us into about 500 to 600 miles of drill work annually in this part of our service territory. When we get to underground cable, our largest challenge by far is third-party damage and dig-ins. So as we go further, I'll probably do some more explaining on this. But that's for a starter.
Great. Thank you for that response. Moving on along, I guess maybe just pick up where you left off there, Steve. Since this webcast focuses on new installation technologies, what specific methods do you use to underground these lines? And of those, which ones tended to work the best for Dominion?
We use horizontal directional drilling almost exclusively on both our cable replacement projects and our strategic undergrounding projects. Occasionally on some of our new work, where we have main lines that have to be undergrounded, we might use horizontal augers, but that's pretty rare. The day-to-day activity is guide drilling or HDD for converting our overhead lines to underground. In that work, we typically are drilling tunnels from 3 to 10 inches in diameter and up to about 800 feet. The majority of our work is performed in the coastal and Piedmont areas of Virginia and North Carolina, with about 10% of our work being performed in Shenandoah and Blue Ridge areas, which does have different types of rock that we have to drill through. So, most of these areas we're able to use bentonite or another approved derivative as tunnel shoring and waste evacuation mediums. The process involves the tunnel drilling, installation of Schedule 40 coilable conduit for the entire run, and then pulling cable back through the conduit. We obviously have, to establish waste storage sites. We do hundreds of these jobs annually to get to our 300 miles. And for every job, we have an environmental department that reviews the details of every project prior to us putting it into construction. We have in the past had vendors who would plow, open cut, and because our program is very customer friendly, it is voluntary. Our customers have to grant us easements to do this undergrounding work. Directional drill is the only way to go. It reduces the customer impacts, it reduces the opportunities for damage. And from an aesthetic perspective, even though there is still a construction site, the customers really like the fact that we're only going to dig a few holes. Yes, obviously drill equipment's still pretty large. You have to set it up on their site, but it leaves. And then when we're said and done, they may have a few safety holes where we identified other facilities. So by far, HDD works best for us.
Great, thanks. Now, how about you, Omar? So what specific methods does the City of Fort Lauderdale use for its trenchless new installations? And if you use several different methodologies, which ones have you found work the best?
For us, the HDD has been the most useful technology for this kind of application. Like I said, the project that we did was 7.5 miles. The pipe size was from 48 to 54-inch pipe, and we use HDPE pipe. And so, we had different pits. We had about 17 pits in total to the whole project. And one of the challenges for Fort Lauderdale is because the water table is very high. So you got to do a lot of dewatering when you're working on those pits. And got to be careful on all that. We have a lot of canals. So the dewatering is a tricky thing to do, and it has to be done correctly in order not to pollute the waterways. So that was a huge challenge for us. And the same thing with the 30-inch pipe project that we did. That was going through a lot of different neighborhoods. The bigger project where it just went through the whole downtown and the whole city, that was very challenging because of that. But we're also doing utility undergrounding right now in some of the aisles. If you're familiar with Fort Lauderdale, East of Las Olas, there's all these aisles. And we're starting to do undergrounding projects there for electrical, cable, AT&T. And right now, we're doing about 28,000 feet of utilities. And we plan to do more as we move to the next phase. But that is also when you have the pits, that the watering is an issue, and we just gotta watch it closely. So that is something we really look into.
Thank you. And Florence, maybe things are a little bit different given that Metro Vancouver is handling the trunk lines. For your new installations, are you primarily using tunneling and micro-tunneling, or using a mix of methods as well?
Yes, traditionally in our region, we actually usually don't consider trenchless open cut. It's usually what we go. But when there's advantages, and recently we see a lot more advantages when to go trenchless installation. So far, most of our work has been using micro tunneling. So the micro tunnel usually only have a couple of shafts that you need entries and exit shaft, and the advantage of that is a lot of our trunk beam is quite large. Some of them can be, I guess it will be relative depending on the region that you're from. Large, they're about 6 feet or a couple of meters in diameter. So it makes sense for the tunneling machines in this range of size. And also, we find that even for smaller projects, excuse me, I don't know the conversion on the top of my head, but my last one is a 600 millimeter sewer installation, and that was the one that I thought, it's not economical to do trenchless, because in our mind, micro tunneling has been slated for much bigger projects that goes for very long miles. But this one, even for a smaller pipe, we find that because of the traffic disruption, it would have potentially cost, and then that trenchless was viable. And we were also happy that another concern with us was it's too small for the contractor to even bid on. That we're happy to have a healthy competition in the market for this small project. So far, our most experience has been with micro tunneling. And I didn't iterate it in the beginning of the presentation, but I've been working in my company for about 10 years. So in the beginning, it's definitely a lot more open cut, but it's slowly shifting. The mindset has been becoming more common that trenchless can be a viable method for a lot of new installations.
Great, thanks. And Steve, you mentioned this a little bit in your introduction. This next question that came in, what is the most effective method that you use or recommend to detect and avoid conflicts with other utilities and avoid those strikes that you mentioned? Primarily water service lines, or is it kind of all the utilities? Steve, you can start.
Sure. First, even though we're using a directional drill technology, we're still obligated to uncover all utilities that we're going to cross. And one of the unique things about our program is we initiate the activity. We identify lines that need repair, and then we approach the customers and let them know that we intend to underground these lines to improve their service without them contacting us. But we also have to get easements. And so one of the things, this was a legislated activity, our customers have to be given an opportunity to identify their private utilities, but they don't have to pay for it. We have to pay for it. So we work with vendors to identify their private utilities, their sprinkler lines. And then also we work with the 811 municipal locating services as well to find those utilities. But most, and like I mentioned before, a lot of coastal activity, We've got a lot of water around us, the Chesapeake Bay and many tributaries on either side. We have to open pits as well to identify all the conflicts. But the advantage we get once we identify the depth, and most of our sewers, for example, are gravity in this area, very few solid pressure sewers, and the water lines are relatively shallow. So we can identify the depth, and then guide the drill to go to a depth that ensures that we don't have conflict with that. So that's the good portion of that. And that, we have conflicts. We have human error. We have some cuts, but every one of our vendors, we use a number of vendors, and they're all on a 5-year contract. They're obligated to have a customer service staff to talk to the customers and to explain what's happened and to ensure that we have restored that customer's property to proper working condition. So, yes, we have some cuts, but the ability to guide drill does allow us to miss a large number of facilities.
And then when you're locating these facilities, what methods are you using? Is it guys out there with locators and shovels? Are you mandating or preferring vacuum excavation? What methods are you using?
Depending on the location. Obviously, any street crossings, there's a small circular cut and vacuum excavations that we utilize. In a established yard, we will frequently open it and use shovels to back out because depending on the properties, bringing the vacuum machinery in there creates more damage to the finished yard than just digging a 18-inch by 18-inch hole, laying the sod off, and then restoring it. So we'll have both, but in all roadways and driveways, we use a vacuum system to discover. But the way the law is written, we have to physically see them. We can't just take a machine and to say the depth is 24 inches and make that assumption.
Great, thanks. And Florence, same question to you. When you have these new installation projects, what is the most effective method that you're using to detect and avoid conflicts with other existing utilities?
Well, we would first try our best to find out all the aspects that we can have. Another way is we do a lot of testing, so we do have to go out and physically locate them and record them before the constructions. Other than that, that's basically all the due diligence that we can do.
Okay. And Omar, in Fort Lauderdale, what is your preferred or mandated method for utility location for these projects?
We contact we have a lot of gas and power and mainly gas and telecommunications. In our own water lines, so in sewer lines. So we do some of the locating as the city, but we also contact the gas company. But some of these projects that we worked on, this big project, the 7.5 mile big pipe, there is some places that we had to go on the bridges. So we went down even 60 feet down, so they were very deep. So it was very tricky to do all the curvatures for the pipe and calculations on how to do it right. So that was complicated, but we didn't have any issues with that. But we also did a water line project in an area here called Victoria Park, and it was about 60,000 feet of water pipes, and those were not as deep. They were about 3-4 feet down the ground. So we had a lot of conflict. So we had to have the gas company and ourselves, be very careful with the locates. And like Steve said, there is also human error. So once in a while, you will tap on a pipe but that is what we did, and that's another project that that was a smaller pipe that was about 8 to 10 inches, and some of it was also pipe bursting, which is another trenchless method that we have used for water pipes. So, yeah.
Great, thanks. And we had maybe Omar and Steve can answer this question since you both mentioned undergrounding electric. How do you handle heat dissipation on the electric? Steve, you want to take this one first?
Sure. All of our cables, our programs now are installed in conduit. We maintain separation, typically a minimum of 5 feet from other electrical conductors. But heat really isn't a major problem because of the load that is carried on these conductors. We are undergrounding tap lines. So typically these are not the main feeder lines that have a huge amount of amperage on them, which creates the heat. These are smaller tap lines. They're primary voltage, but there's not that much load on them that would create the heat. So heat dissipation isn't a real problem. They're in conduit, so they don't actually get the benefit of the brackish, loamy soil that we have here to cool, but it's not really a problem. We worry more about magnetism reducing amperage as opposed to the heat being the problem.
Thanks. And Omar, same question to you since Fort Lauderdale does have some undergrounding work underway. How do you handle heat dissipation?
Well, very similar to what Steve just said. We have different conduits where the power goes in and communications, and they're not huge loads. These aisles are probably 1,000 feet runs. Some of them are a little longer depending on the size of this aisle. But we don't have issues with that either. So, like he said, we worry more about magnetism than the actual heat load. And they're all the pipe, all the conduit, and everything is encased.
Great, thank you. Florence, this question came in for you. You mentioned that Metro Vancouver has a combined sewer system. Is that still the case? Is it still predominantly a combined system, or as you're doing these new installation projects, are you separating the collection systems into separate stormwater and sewer systems?
Yeah, so we do have some combined, but no, our transmission main is mainly for the purpose of transmitting liquid waste, which is sewer. The combination comes from the municipality side, and because the municipality pipes are fairly old, and traditionally they have been, if you have a storm drain on the street, they would just connect to the closest drainage looking pipe, which is the sewer pipe, and that's been historically the case, and that's where the challenges come from. We cannot command the city to separate that system, their system, but it's their ongoing effort right now. To reduce infill and infiltration. So we do have a separation program, but it's not run by Metro Vancouver. It's run by the municipalities that are feeding the sewer into our trunk sewer.
Great, thanks. Here's a question for the whole panel, and Omar, we'll start with you. Does Fort Lauderdale perform any of this new installation work in-house, or is it predominantly contracted work?
So a lot of these projects that we do, some of them are design built, where the contractor has to complete the design. We give them a DCP, and this big project that I mentioned, that was a design build, and we use contractors to do the work. We have in-house project managers that manage the project, schedule and budget. So they're on site. We have our own inspectors that go on site to make sure that the pipe is properly installed. In this case, the wells of the HDPE pipe had to be done correctly. All that is daily log that our inspectors perform. But yeah, most of these jobs are design build. Some are full design done by a consultant, but the construction is all by contractors.
What about you, Steve? Do you do any of this undergrounding work in-house, or is it contracted?
When we first started, we attempted to do it in-house, and we determined it was quickly the engineering side of it was going to overwhelm us. The construction side wasn't even thought to be feasible. So we're now very similar to Omar. We have 8 contractors who have 5-year contracts, and they're design build contractors. They perform all the professional activities, design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction. They're allowed to use a second-tier sub as they need to, but we work with them for that. We don't do any of the actual work on the projects. Now, I have project managers, and we also have engineers who scope the projects prior to releasing them to the vendor to work on with scopes, boundaries, and give them a time frame that they have to accomplish that project. And so the project managers and engineers do that, but the rest of it is done totally by design build vendors.
Great. Florence, in Metro Vancouver, are you doing any of your trenchless work in-house, or is it all contracted out?
No, so both design and construction, we do a design bid build system. So during the design stage, we would, again, just like Steve, we have in-house engineers and project managers. We would scope out the project. We would usually divide them into more biddable and manageable chunks of projects. We would go for a design bid build to hire consultants to come in and do detailed design or of the tunneling, because it involves some specific knowledge that we don't have in-house tunnel experts. And also the geotechnical side, we find it's really important aspect of micro tunneling. So we need the consultant that really know their stuff in how to build a tunneling project to come up with a good design. And once the design is 100% complete, we would go out to the public market for contractors to bid on it. We do have some flexibility in the design. For example, micro tunneling, the tunnel size can be decided by the contractor. So, for example, my pipe is only 600 mil. And again, sorry for using SI units, 600 mil, and then the contractor may choose to use a 900 mil machine or a 1.2 meter machine. And we and the hosting pipe the material we can leave that to the contractor. But in general, the manhole size and access shafts, locations, and stuff is pretty set. So that's usually our method to go with constructing a new sewer pipe.
Great, thanks. So, one of the things that we've heard here at Trenchless Technology from municipalities for several years is that, they do have some challenges that they're facing when it comes to new installation work. What are some of the challenges that you faced? Is it finding the contractors, finding products, just general supply issues? Florence, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I briefly mentioned about it during my introduction about some of the recent challenges that we face. A big one is permitting. We have to make sure we have all our permits fairly well in advance. Our procurement department is fairly strict on whether or not we can go out to tender with or without a permit. And so sometimes if the if the lead time of a permit can take up to 6 months to a year, we have to make sure that it's in place even before we begin the procurement process. And the procurement process, because we're a public body, it's quite lengthy also. If, the bigger the contract is, the more level of scrutiny it has to go through. So a contract can take up to 4 months to award from the moment it goes out to the street. So I think long lead time right now is our biggest challenge. Currently, I think everyone in the world has to say would have the same challenge. Would be inflation and uncertainty of work crew and securing of prices. Even though if we receive a bid, we have a clause that says that the price is good up to 60 days. We've got contractors that says we'll put it in, but we're not so sure that that's going to be the case with everything that's going on with the world economics and different conflicts in different parts of the world. So those are the biggest challenges that we're currently facing.
Great. And same question to you, Omar. What are some of the challenges that you're facing with these trenchless projects? I think maybe Omar froze up there. Steve, why don't you jump in and take this?
Sure. A couple of things. Permitting can be a problem in certain areas. One of the things about Virginia, there is a huge amount of historic areas, and I think everybody has that, but you have to work through those. But we give our vendors, the ability to obtain those, and they're pretty good at it. And so the permitting we're able to go through, our environmental services group is very adamant that we follow the letter of the law every time. But the real challenge right now is materials. Plastic pipe, we're up to us, our vendors are required to provide the pipe, and we reimburse them through their as-built designs. And they're 6 months out ordering pipe. Now, granted, when you're putting in 600 miles of conduit a year, that's a lot of pipe that you have to order. And the vast majority of it is 3-inch conduit, just based on what we need. So that takes quite a while to get. Due to pandemic related issues, many of our vendors have a hard time keeping employees. And the headhunters out there, for lack of a better term, because there are some experienced employees out there, they'll offer higher wages. And so these guys will, men and women will leave to go to another vendor quickly. Every electric utility is doing grid resiliency and grid security activities right now. And what that means is, yes, Dominion started Strategic Underground, but there's a heck of a lot of other activity going on out there that competes with those resources. So that, and the fact that I think it's the same, at least in my area of expertise, the retirement. A lot of people just said, I'm done working, I'm retiring. I'm gonna find a job that I can work inside my house. So those are the things that really have impacted us. We're able to work through it, but it's requiring a lot more management from my team, my project management team, and truthfully, my bosses.
Great. Seems that Omar is still having problems. I know his team there in Fort Lauderdale are working to get him back on ASAP, but we'll keep moving. And when he rejoins us, we'll have questions for him. Steve, do you use HDD in the downtown and residential areas that have limited space for a working yard or pipe laydown? Or are you using in more rural areas only?
I'll answer that in a couple different ways. Our urban areas, frequently, because this is a legislative program, we have very strict data interpretation rules and metrics. And often, because of that, the urban areas do not qualify for strategic undergrounding. So in most of those urban areas, the infrastructure is old. It was installed open ditch and concrete encased with manholes back in the early 1900s, brick manholes and things like that. And so we don't really interact a whole lot there. I have a little knowledge of it. I was a project manager in that arena for a while. But what happens is in our suburban, even the tight suburban neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods, these vendors have gotten really good with these machines. And we're able to replace or install cable on homes with 80-foot frontages and able to get the service laterals all the way up to the buildings and use the directional drill to do that. So on the rural, it's pretty clean. I will say we limit our runs to 800 to 1,000 feet, and primarily because we can only get cable on a spool to 1,000 feet for the high voltage cable that we use. So one of the things we don't want to do is install a splice in the middle of a conduit run. So we'll put an above ground terminating device or an access hole at 1,000 feet so that we can make our splice at that point and do that. So those guys can drill well over 1,000 feet if they have the need. We've done a few water crossings where we did that, but HDD is the predominant method. We've had some vendors who wanted to plow and we would not give them a contract. That results in more damages than anything we can imagine. So.
Great, thanks. And as a reminder to our viewers, we have about 10 minutes left in today's webcast. If you have any questions, please enter them into the box, and we'll try to get them answered in the time that we have left. Florence, can you briefly describe, whether it be good or bad, your Metro Vancouver's experiences with Trenchless Technologies on the new installation side, any lessons learned or anything of that nature?
Yes, of course. Some of the lessons learned is that we learned that even though Trenchless Technology for the good of the public is overall has less impact to the road users, to residents and businesses in the area, but where the shafts are located is very concentrated impact. So while we go in with the good intention of helping the public, there is a couple of people that will be predominantly affecting more than the rest of the groups. So we've learned that we really have to do a lot more engagement in the locations where the entries and exit shafts are located, because they'll experience the most noise, the most traffic disruption, the most visual impact this year. Giant gaping hole in front of the house for sometimes up to 6 months, right? So from the times of they begin construction to the time they finish and recover, it can be almost half a year. So we learned that having a very, very good, we have a very good in-house communication team to just keep on checking in on them. How can we help you? What are you doing this week? Do you have any special needs that do our trucks needs to move out of your way for your family to get out? Those communications, we find that if we're onto it, it would really help. Another lessons learned I could think is the geotech report is really important for any underground work that you're not going in, that you kind of have going in blind. So we find that we need to do a lot of investigation, a lot of boreholes to make sure we really know what type of soil that we have. We're especially interested in finding out what the rocks are because they tend to slow down construction quite a bit, and they wear down the micro tunneling machines quite a bit. It's not to say the contractors don't have capabilities. They are very capable of going through very hard materials, but the wear on the machine can be can be quite a bit, and it can be that they did not anticipate they have to, for example, change the disk 3-4 times in this project instead of just going once or twice. So that's another lessons learned that I think that may benefit all the audience here.
Hey, thanks, Omar. Can you hear us? You're back. I see you're back online.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Something happened here. I just froze. What's the question is about what we learned from our experience?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we learned that the residents are the most important part of the project, and we did a lot of planning, and we coordinated with strategic communications to have everybody informed of all these projects and all the pits, and have the residents be aware weeks and ahead of time what was happening on their street. You know, the whole city was going through it. The residents were very patient. They cooperated. I feel like after doing this huge project, we do have a better relationship with all our residents. They appreciate the work. We did this through the whole pandemic. We started the project, I think, 1 month before the pandemic hit, back in, March 2020. And so restoration is a very important part of the project. And where all the pits are, where all the drills come in, that's something that we learned that we had to really watch all the before and after videos to make sure that the restoration was done properly. And, that's what we learned. And we have used that experience on future projects, doing water projects now that we're doing the aisles. It's not as a huge project, it's a small pipe, but we still, are concentrate on that area. So that was a big lesson learned. Another thing is, you had a question there about finding contractors. There is a limited amount of contractors that do this work. So you had to really find and look into their experience and how many projects they have done, et cetera, et cetera. So that is challenging, but it's another lesson learned. And we're trying to educate the city and the contractors of what we want to do with Trenchless Technology. So that's a very important part of the process.
Great, thanks. And Steve, what are some of the lessons learned for Dominion? You've had an strategic undergrounding program for quite some time. So what are some things that you've learned over that period?
A couple things. From a technology perspective, almost all of our vendors use the same technology, just different brand names. And so their method of drilling is pretty much the same. We've got a very rigid, and Omar mentioned it, communications program. We actually won a national award for our communications effort. All of our customers are talked to at least every 60 days when a project is in development, and pretty much weekly when we're out there. So they have Dominion representatives and vendor representatives. So it's really important. We learned that a lot of people can do the construction, but you really need special people to talk to the customers and make sure they understand what's going on. I think when we first started that, we worked with one of our gas companies in Ohio, and they had been on, people know gas companies are doing main replacement projects as fast as they can. And that was one of the feedbacks they gave us, that they had learned it the hard way, that communications was real important. So I would say communications and restoration, the two biggest things.
Great, thanks. And Omar and Steve, mentioned the importance of communication in the trenchless process for these projects. Is there any other advice you'd give other system owners who are looking to do more trenchless new installation work, or in some cases, start allowing trenchless new installation work? Steve, we'll start with you.
I would say vet your contractors very carefully, because this is a rapidly growing industry. Just because somebody owns a few drills doesn't mean they're the person you want or the company you want on your site. Look for gold shovel certification. Look for other certifications that proves to you they know how to prevent damages and avoid damages. And make sure they have the wherewithal to meet the targets that you're going to set. We're an investor-owned utility, so we have very important targets and rate structure, truthfully, that affect this. So need to look through that, but definitely need to make sure you pick the right contractors.
Great, thanks. Florence, why don't we go to you? What's some advice that you'd have for people looking to start doing more trenchless work?
Oh, like I said before, when we first began looking into trenchless technology, I thought it was beyond our reach. We thought our project is too small scaled to consider trenchless. But I would encourage everyone to look a little deeper into whether or not it's viable. We spend maybe for maybe a $4 million project, we spend about $50,000 investigating with a engineering consulting firm. The trenchless was a good technology, and it came back positive, and we were glad that we made that choice. So there may be more opportunities than you think, if you have this similar mindset as I did. Trenchless tunneling, those are for big subways, those are for big water tunnels. It's not for me, but I think it can be more useful than you realize.
All right, thanks. And Omar, to you, what advice would you have for other system owners?
I attended a lot of conferences. I given presentations about trenchless technologies, and the main question that I get is, how long is this going to last? Is it, because most people are used to open pit, open trench technologies, and that's the most common technology right now. But yeah, I encourage them to look into trenchless technology companies that do this work, look at the record. If they want to contact me and get company names that we have here at the city that we have good experience, I'm more than happy to guide them in the right direction. So that's very important. But you do have to do your homework and look at their experience and the actual work that they have done, and the lengths of the drills, etc. So that's very important.
Great, thanks. We've come up on our hour today, so I'd like to thank Omar, Florence, and Steve for the insight that you've offered today. I'd also like to thank the NASTT No-Dig Show for sponsoring the webcast. I'd like to also thank all the attendees for joining us today. Just a reminder that the deadline to apply for the 2023 NASTT No-Dig Show Municipal and Public Utility Scholarships is November 1st. More information is available on the NASTT website at nastt.org. We had some great questions today, and if there's some that we missed, we'll try to get these addressed offline via email. I also encourage everybody to be on the lookout for information on our future live webcasts. On World Trenchless Day, September 22nd, we will cover finding successes with trenchless technologies. At the end of that webcast, we will announce our 2022 Trenchless Technology Projects of the Year. And in December, we plan to discuss infrastructure funding with a focus on the American Rescue Plan and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Acts. This concludes today's Trenchless Technology webcast. If there is something you missed in today's webcast or would like to reference, today's webinar will be archived at trenchlesstechnology.com/webinars. As a reminder, any views or opinions presented in this webcast are solely those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent those of Benjamin Media, Inc., the publisher of Trenchless Technology, nor does Benjamin Media, Inc. endorse any products or methods presented. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.